modern drummer Tracy Broussard from Blake Shelton. Here's the rig.
Hey everybody, it's Tracy Broussard with Blake Shelton. I'm honored to be here with Modern Drummer and give you a rundown of my kit. So the kit's a Pearl Reference 1, and Pearl redesigned the Reference series. And sometimes you wonder, man, how could they have gotten any better? But they definitely did. I'm really excited about this kit. The whole story behind the Reference series is they not only blend the plies of the drum according to the size, but also the bearing edges are different. So the 13 by 9 inch tom, it's a 6-ply shell, so it's 4-ply maple and 2-ply mahogany with a rounded 45 on the bearing edge. Now the 16-inch floor tom, that's 6-ply maple, 2-ply mahogany, so it's an 8-ply shell, and that's a fully rounded bearing edge. And then the kick drums, they're 8-ply, so it's 2-ply maple, 6-ply mahogany with a fully rounded bearing edge. Hoops are die-cast hoops, and they also redesigned the tom mounts. That was a big deal. Everyone was shocked when Pearl went to the L-Rod, and it was this big upheaval, but I tell you, the L-Rod is pretty amazing. So this finish is Ultra Blue Burst, and then I went with nickel hardware. So I really feel that it's a one-of-a-kind kit, and because it is. And to have this out here, and you know, I'm kind of like a kid when it comes to, wait, hold on. So Pearl made a kit for me, and they did. It was pretty awesome. I also have the Pearl rack, which this year we decided to redo the rack. It's a Blake Shelton gig. You don't need a huge elaborate rack. So Ed and I, my tech, we were trying to figure out what can we do that was close to what we had before, subtle but functional. So we decided to go a little bit lower with the rack. And Pearl came out with attachments for microphones. And we attached these to the cymbal booms. So now they're uniform. Mics aren't going anywhere. They're locked in. Our monitor guy loves it because everything is set in one spot, not moving around. And so we integrated that into the kit. And the combination with the clamps that they have, you can pretty much do anything as far as a rack goes. So once again, this is a subtle rack, solid, and it's really cool. We don't have to take anything off of the rack. Most of the stuff just goes into a case, just like it is. Cymbal-wise, I've played Zildjian as long as I can remember. For hi-hats, I'm using 15-inch K light hats. Then I have a 10-inch FX stack. Using that for like drum loops and stuff. The splashes are a 10-inch K custom and an 8-inch K custom. Those recently I switched because I wanted something a little bit darker. And then I have a 20-inch Sweet Crash. And I'm kind of late to the party as far as those go, but I absolutely love them. The other thing, K custom Dark Ride, 20-inch. I had played a K custom medium ride forever. But this year, wanting to go with something maybe a little bit darker, I experimented with some different ride cymbals. The bell is great, but what I was missing was like just a wash, like some kind of washy. The K Custom Medium was a little bit too controlled. I needed something a little more open. So I'm really digging the K Custom Dark Ride 20. The other crash is a 20-inch K Dark Thin, and this is a 17-inch K China. Funny story about the China. In high school, I saved up money to get a 17-inch K China. Brilliant finish, because back then you could either get brilliant or platinum or regular. And so Zildjian was cool enough to, for nostalgia's sake, do the brilliant for this China. They're just legendary. I mean, it's Zildjian. So you can't really There's nothing else that you can compare it to. And just seeing that logo, it elicits all these emotions. Just looking at Modern Drummer as a kid and seeing the Zildjian logo, it's like, man, that's so cool. So being with them it's been awesome. Head-wise, I'm using Aquarian. The first tour I ever did back in 1999, we were opening, and this wasn't with Blake, this was with Shane Minor, country artist, quite a songwriter. But we were opening for Shania Twain, and J.D. Blair was playing with Shania. And he was playing Aquarian. And I was talking to him, and he said, man, you know, if you're interested, I can get you the guy's number, Chris Brady's number. I said, cool. But I wanted to play him first. So I bought a set, loved him, talked to Chris. 25 years later, still there, love it. Snare drum, I'm using a high velocity, coated high velocity. And then on the auxiliary snare, I'm using a coated Response 2. On the snare side, I'm using the Aquarian High Performance. What I love about this is the added protection here, because you don't want the snare wires to dig into here. So it's just a little bit added protection. Batter on the toms, clear Response 2. On the bottoms, I'm using classic clears. And the kick drum is a Super Kick 10. The auxiliary snare is a Beyer. So James Beyer is a mad scientist when it comes to snare drums. He's in Wisconsin, and he builds some amazing snare drums. It's a steel snare drum, but because it's powder coated, it kind of takes the brightness, so it really cuts really, really well. So this is a 12x5, and my snare drum is a 14x6.5 Sensitone nickel over brass.
Thank you for watching and supporting everything Modern Drummer is up to. Hit the subscribe button down below. It means so much to us because we can keep bringing you the best drummers and content all the time. And please check out our shop. We've got Legends books. We've got back issues. We've got swag. Everything the drumming community could want. And it's so exciting to have you guys be the best part of it. Once again, thank you, and enjoy the rest of the video.
And then, as a backup, I have the Pearl 14x6.5 Duo Lux. Man, this is pretty cool because it's reminiscent of the classic Pearl drums, I think like the President series or something. And I really love the inlay. And this is a great drum too. It's good to have. Of course, you need to have a backup, but to have a backup like that is pretty awesome. I've been playing Pro Mark since I was 10. And for a long time, I used the Japanese Oak 808, and currently we're trying to get that back. But in the meantime, I'm using the Japanese Oak 5B. And they're very similar. The difference between the biggest thing that I can see between the 5B and the 808 is the tip. The 808 has like a rounder tip, whereas this is more like an oval. But it's really good balance point, and I really like Japanese Oak for the way that it wears. Of course, there's hickory, but what I like about the oak is that it seems to wear in chunks versus splintering like hickory does. A lot of guys feel that the oak is too dense, but man, I've played it for a long time and I really dig it. So until we bring the 808s back, the 5Bs have been great. And of course, using the whole arsenal of other Pro Mark sticks, we got the hot rods, we got broomsticks, we got brushes, mallets. They've got you covered. So bass drum pedal, I'm using an Eliminator, and then a hi-hat stand is an H930, and not using a double pedal. Blake's music doesn't really dictate that. And going back a long time ago, my brother, who's a drummer, was like, man, listen, if you want to play a double pedal, you need to learn how to play one before you can play two. So I'm still doing that. Got the big fat snare drum. Man, love those guys. I think we've all come up with different ways to do it, but they've sure made it a lot easier for us too. And I use them both. I have a 14-inch for my primary, and then I have a 12 for my auxiliary snare. And I just get different tones. Sometimes I'll throw the snare off and put the big fat snare drum on there to give a different tone. And then, of course, putting it on the primary, you can drop the tone of the drum and not having to switch out as far as getting that big beefy snare drum sound. You can just rip it off, put it back on. It's really neat. They've also made these magnets that attach Velcro wise, and you just stick it on there so you're not fooling around for it. And every once in a while I'll throw the old Oriental Trash Splash 11-inch on the auxiliary snare just to give it that loopy sound. As far as electronics go, got a rolling pad where I'm starting and stopping the tracks, but I also have sounds loaded for different drum loops and whatnot. This is a Fisher headphone amp, and I have a Zune H6. Have this plugged in, so I'm actually getting my monitor mix into here, and I can go back and listen to the show. And what my mix consists of and what it's recorded on here: click, count offs, drum loops, all that stuff, and then of course the rest of the band. So it's a really good reference for me to go back and listen. Okay, am I really finding the little spaces in the loops and in the tracks and all that stuff to make sure and it's very unforgiving because I have click also in here, and man, it's, they say the tape never lies, so it's very humbling to go back and listen to the show tape and be like, oh boy, I need to get that cleared up. Rhythm watch. My ears are Fur Audio. I have a Sennheiser TalkBack. I have a switch down here that I can talk to the rest of the band, and I can also hear our band leader and some other guys. But honestly, this is the banter mic. We just say funny stuff. That's also recorded on here. So sometimes when I listen back, sometimes people say funny stuff or rude stuff or maybe stuff you probably shouldn't get out there. So this is private. No one's listening to that. Another thing that Pearl has done, once again, it was great. Why are you changing it? But they did, and it's even better. The R2 Air suspension system. Are you kidding me? It is amazing. It's low profile, stays out of the way, and you get more resonance from the drums. I know I only have one rack tom, but I can definitely tell the difference. And the biggest thing is sometimes mounting systems and suspension systems, they get in the way of the drums, not Pearl's. It's so sleek, it's barely there. And something else that Pearl has done with the Reference 1 series is the small lugs. Really cool. It gives it this really kind of, not really antique, but this classic vibe, and not getting in the way of the drums. Minimal contact. I really dig these lugs. So I'm running all Sennheiser microphones. Thank you, Tim Moore, long time friend. We've been through a lot. He and I traveled the world together, and now he's the artist rep at Sennheiser and been there for years, and he's taking good care of us. So all the mics are Sennheiser. My snare top is an E905. My snare bottom is an E604, and the side snare and first tom are E904s. Hi-hat is an E914. The underheads, they're not overheads, they're underheads. They're Neumann KM185s. The floor tom is an E902. And in the kick drum, we have an E901 on the inside. And on the outside, we have an E602. And we can't forget my mascot, Clidon Friss. He's been with me a long time. Faithful servant. And these two little buddies, I don't know, I think they just showed up. So they're kind of just joining in. Moral support. And the custom head is by Dominic at Woodshed Stage Art. That's another long relationship that was built upon just meeting him through Richard Redmond. And I can't state enough the importance of relationships when it comes to endorsements. So every head we've ever had, and every time I've needed a head, Woodshed Stage Art has taken care of us.
Peace.